Fission Radio Show with your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Fission radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear.
Good morning, UCY.TV radio listeners. This is Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show. I was on the line. Hold on just one second. Let me see if I can fix this. I was on the line with Rod Fruend from St. Louis, and we were unable to get through. So I am going to attempt to call him right back because he is a citizen of St. Louis who has been actively engaged in kind of paying attention to what's going on in St. Louis. So hold on one second. Let me see what we can do.
Hello?
Hi, Rod. This is Lonnie Clark from the Age of Fission radio show. I believe that we are on the air. And so here we go. The producer tells me that we are on the air and she can hear us. So I wanted to thank you for joining us today on the Age of Fission radio show. As you know, on Mondays we cover basically the story that's going on in St. Louis. And as we unpeel the onion, it turns out to be not just St. Louis, but a lot of places in Missouri. So, Rod, thank you for joining us. And let me just ask you some questions about your own experience. Do you live near the Westlake landfill or the Coldwater Creek areas where they're being contaminated?
Hello?
Hello, Rod.
Yeah.
Can you hear us?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Well, I just thought I'd bring our listeners up to speed, and you can share with them what part of St. Louis you're in, and what brings you to our radio show. You know, well.
There's a number of things. Okay.
Okay.
And it's really. I thought I wanted to talk about Coldwater Creek, which the government used radiation and polluted, and there's 4,200 people that have cancer, 4,600 that has appendix cancer. That's 1 in a million. And the government here, and I say government, that we elect and pay for, it's just out of hand, okay? These people are dead. Then they took it from there and put it in a landfill. And then they have another place called Weldon Springs where they built the bomb. And people are dying. They did a big remuneration where they spent all kind of money next to a high school that they continue to let to go. And it's more people, not everybody, dies of cancer. But then they got a letter here from the state, which that's the federal government. Here's the state that says, well, there's no problem. Then a year later, that's in 2013. In 2014, they're asking for emergency funds. Then they just released something to the papers. There's no problem with Coldwater Creek. But in the paper, and I called the person from the paper, said, well, do you get anybody's information other than the paper? And then, as I see that, they say there's no problem. And well, why are they still paying all this money to remunerate this public park where kids are at? They have two more. And then, on top of that, there's no problem. The guy's pictures in front of a railroad car covered up that they're taken to, I think, New Mexico. Well, that's stupid. If there's no problem, what are they remunerating for? Oh, and the other thing is, guess where the people that got the rumination problem? They're from Chicago. That shouldn't surprise anybody. But and these people are still dying, still doing this. There's a film out. It's called The First Secret City. If the trailers are on your thing, and go to Weldon Springs, the facts. Well, all of them.
Hold on just 1 second, Rod. So there's a site called Weldon Springs, the facts?
Okay, no. It's Coldwater Creek.
Okay.
The facts. And they can see how many people died. There's dots on there. And people will be appalled when they see appendix cancer that's on there. It's not only that, it's muscular dystrophy, all kind of things. And in this first secret city, the priest comes on here from Weldon Springs. He was a priest in the inner city, buried no kids for 10 years. And in Weldon Springs, he buries 4 infants. So, and then, well, there's no problem. Well, when most people make a mistake, and maybe they did make a mistake, and maybe they didn't know.
They knew.
Okay, at least you admit to your mistakes and take care of your problems.
Rod, that's not the conversation we're going to have with this government. I mean, unfortunately, Operation Paperclip.
No. Yeah, we do have that conversation because I'll tell you why. People can talk about it, get to the poll, and make a difference, they hope. Some places in the world where I've been, you have no hope. I mean, I've been to Russia, I've been to Bulgaria, I've been around. You really don't have hope. And here, you have the opportunity and the privilege, if everything is counted right, to get rid of what's going on. And people don't show it. I've been involved in government for a long time. The people don't go to these meetings. They don't say. The only meetings they show up to is zoning meetings where it's in their neighborhood. Well, look here. This isn't in your neighborhood. It's in your community. Mm-hmm. And somebody needs to do something about it. And I've been telling these people you need to have a political campaign. You need to have bumper stickers. You need to have shirts. You need to have signs. And eventually, somebody will come in. And then what happens is you throw a couple congressmen out, and they'll understand that maybe they ought to start listening.
Well, I think that this is why I cover the St. Louis area on Mondays. To me, when I say that St. Louis is the United States, that's exactly what I mean. People compartmentalize the problems so that they don't have to look at it. And the issue with the nuclear contamination is that it's not just going to stay in one neighborhood. It really has contaminated. The more I pull this onion apart, it's in many neighborhoods, and it's nuclear. It's a bunch of different things. I mean, that's what makes it so bad, because it's not just the nuclear pollution. It's the fuse wrap pollution, and it's the deaths that are being denied. I mean, this is the issue. People do not want to actually, they would rather pretend that it's okay. I mean, for goodness sakes, we see children dying every week, and the government is still not moving people away from a burning nuclear dump site, from a leaking nuclear dump site. It's just unconscionable, in my opinion. I,
Right.
I did try to get that. I've made an effort to get that movie, The First Secret City, here to Eugene, Oregon. The little local theater, the only local theater that would probably pay it, said in order for them to actually show it, they have to make up their costs, and that cost would be about $2,500 because it's not on some list, I guess, that makes it cheap for them. So that they have to, in order for us to bring that movie here, we have to give the theater $2,500. Like, really? That's a good way to suppress the information.
Well,
Okay.
we're trying to get it shown at more churches, and
Churches,
part of
that's a great idea.
okay, but part of what happened is that I've been to places and with this thought to see the thing. Well, it was out of the area. I saw all the people, and they say, "Oh well," and that's sort of what everybody says to government. Oh well, we don't. What my nephew runs some big agency. They give him all kind of money, and well, if it ain't right, oh well. What's so well is that they don't care and they don't expect anymore. They give some people up to half their money, give to the government, and they spend it. And the other thing that's appalling is they probably gave Japan. We're giving money to places like Pakistan, and all these people of the United Nations, and all these people. I was just looking at the chart. How many of these people voted against us? And that it's just obscene that anybody would give these guys millions of dollars and they vote against it. They probably even gave Japan more money than they spent here, and they knew what they did here. Now, I had a strange thing. I couldn't drive because of heart problem, and a fellow drove me. And he happens to be, when we listened to the whole thing, a PhD, Fulbright Scholar, nuclear science. And I asked him, some of this is true, some of it isn't. Would you do what they're doing? And he was in this in Europe, okay, for the UN on pollution. And he said, well, no. I said, when they put the dirt in with this stuff and in with the radiation and dump it in a landfill and cover it up, is that enough? He said, who knows? Stuff goes, or not. This is 70 years. They had a thing up here in Florissant, and I went, the place was packed, and nobody wants to talk. So I was the first person. I said, well, I know why my wife died of brain cancer that went to her brain. I said, well, I understand that. She grew up on Fontaine Street, and I look at these maps, and it goes into Coldwater Street, and she died when she was 33, and I'm 71, so it's been, I guess, years. And I said, I know, but you're telling me now that you want, after 70 years, want 5 more years to study? You ought to know. Maybe you didn't know when this all happened.
They know. Let me tell you what, Rod. They know unequivocally. They know. Dr. John Goffman wrote book after book after book, jumping up and down in the late 70s, all through the late 60s and 70s, trying to stop the nuclear train. That's when Dr. Helen Caldicott wrote many of her books. She got 1 million people out in the street trying to stop nuclear. They know exactly what they're doing. What they're doing now is figuring out ways to lie to us about it. That's really that's the answer.
The next time, this was at that meeting, and this friend offered to help all these agencies. And then he takes me down to see the first secret city. He said, well, you know what? They're not going to answer my letter. They don't want my help. They know what they did. When you see the study, they saw the scientists, they know exactly what they did. But if you know exactly what you did, and you know that, you ought to say, hey, I made a mistake. I made a mistake. And a big part of our problem is the media, the paper that reports what the government tells them. That's almost what you see in a communist country where everybody's under the control. The government reports that, or, over there they just take care of it. But these people that are so stupid, so naive, that can sit there, don't go search where it's at, and then don't report on it. And the guy says, well, I said, did you ever get anybody's opinion other than the government, the big paper? Well, no. I said, wait a minute. Totally wait a minute. You're telling me you report something and don't check it out, and you report it as a fact, and people believe that as a fact, and then they go vote as that as a fact? That's the biggest problem.
What did they say when you said that to them? What was the response to that?
Look, this paper's lucky they're existing. It's a paper for over the whole thing. They straight decide nobody advertises, but why would anybody advertise if they know what they tell you is not the fact? Why would you go into somebody, say, and go to somebody to talk to you about somebody that doesn't have the facts and can't break it up? Whenever you sell or promote or you negotiate, you have to go there with the facts. Well, you come there with the facts, and they try to tell you you don't have the facts. But why don't they put this Coldwater Creek, the facts, in the paper?
You want to know why? This is the real reason. I mean, this is the answer, because the nuclear industry owns the media. It is, when you say it's like a communist country, it is. We are living in USSR. It really has turned. I mean, honestly, when we look at the reality, this is fascism. Fascism is when the government agencies promote the benefit and the welfare of the corporations to the detriment of the people. That's what we're living in. I mean, it has been all about the money since World War II. Since they split the atom, they started. Look at these are the facts. They learned how to split the atom to fight Hitler. And they brought all of Hitler's scientists who were making far advances on that. They figured out a way to bring them into our country. Since World War II, our military has really been off its rocker with imperialism and, the United States is now saying that we are going to upgrade our nuclear arsenal instead of saying we're going to turn away from it. That's why we have all these nuclear power plants. The reason we do not have thorium reactors, Rod, is because thorium reactors do not produce a waste product that you can use in nuclear weapons. So it's all about the weapons, and that we really are an afterthought. We are, literally assets on a balance sheet that they do not care whether we live or die. That is the facts. Look at your wife. How old was she when she died? In her 30s. Did anybody apologize or say anything to you? We're sorry that she had to live near a nuclear dump site. They're never going to do that.
You know what? This is not sort of, it has been kept a secret. Now, in this area up there, exactly where it's at, off of there, I built a mortuary.
Wow.
I built 2 units. I built some of it on Coldwater Creek. I walked this site in the 70s when I was vice president of Chamber of Commerce. And have you ever been any place where you didn't think it was right? I didn't know. I went there and I saw this place. I says, I don't feel right. I want nothing to do with this because it's right by McDonald's. I said, there's something wrong here. I don't feel right. I want nothing to do with it. I walked this creek a couple times, and I more than once at the one place. I said, there's something wrong here. Why? How come? What's happening here? And I thought because I actually got a very good deal from the savings and loan on the 4 lot. I said, well, you know, what's wrong here? And when you find out what the problem is, and then we went to this meeting, and I wasn't very nice. So the guy from the court, I knew what I was doing, so he came over and talked to me. And I said, you know, how do you explain when it gets to Coldwater Creek and it goes off of the creek? In other words, it goes down the creek and then it gets spiders off to the side. And usually when things are polluted and it's in the water, it goes downhill. Mm-hmm. It's right off to the side. And I said, right. Did you ever think to look at the storm sewer? And his eyes go up. I says, well, why do you say that? Well, it's the only thing that connects to the creek. Now, it's not a phone line. You know, it's not the air. I mean, it all does, but everybody that breathes the air don't get it. So the only thing that gets it is the thing. I tell them that. You think I heard back? No. You know, I said no. And I asked this nuclear scientist, I said, could he get them cold water creeks and get up there when it floods and settle? He says, yes. I built buildings up there. I know how flat the sewers are. So when it floods, it has to go into those things and it could go down. Well, you think there's a chance? You think that they're looking at that? No, they're doing the two public parks.
Wow.
By somebody that's out of Chicago, and that shouldn't surprise.
Well, it does surprise us. It does, you know, how do you get used to complete gross negligence? How do you get used to that? This is the thing. We cannot get used to it. I mean, the
only thing that you can do here, only thing you can do is get to the poll. And you talk to your congressman if they don't understand. They're not your congressman, and they shouldn't be there. You talk to your senator. If they can't do anything, they shouldn't be there. You can get to the poll and vote for a president, and I wonder who that is, that understands. But as you go up the line, you can see what happens. Now, one thing that I'm very, very, I don't understand is how, and I've been involved in politics here at the governor's level, running campaigns up the line, for the governor. But here's what happens. When a guy gets there and he can't do nothing, and I told these guys in our house, well, they get this law together, and it happens to be on pro-life. Well, every law they get, they pass. The governor turns it down because he's a Democrat. And if he gets it to the court, they're going to turn it down anyway. So, and we've got people in the Supreme Court, in our local things, that are appointed that aren't elected. And, you know, maybe they're doing some things, but anybody that can approve what other people are laughing at us, this transgender restroom. I mean, it's a joke. I mean, if you polled everybody, nobody wants that.
Look, this is how they manipulate the American people. See, this is my thing. I heard this on the radio, and I think I completely agree with it. They use these issues as experiments in America to see, because we're an isolated nation, we don't have exposure to other nations. So they use these issues to see if it's going to work worldwide. If it works on us, they push that agenda on other people. I mean, this issue about the bathrooms is a uniquely American thing, because in most European countries, they only have one bathroom for men and women. It's a ridiculous argument. It's a false flag to keep us from looking at the real issues. And this idea of, I mean, I have to say, seriously, Rod, I'm beginning to get kind of like some of my listeners, pretty skeptical about our elected officials making any change whatsoever in the nuclear, even in the Monsanto pollution world, because we really, honestly, Claire McCaskill, I actually helped get Claire McCaskill elected. I thought that's what Missouri needed. We needed to have a good progressive. She's turned into a blue dog Democrat, which is really a Bush Democrat. And Roy Blunt is protecting the EPA and the nuclear industry. His family works inside the nuclear industry. So he has vested interests. I've done some research on these people. They are not going to challenge anything that has to do with nuclear. None. I mean, it's going to take millions of us. Look what's happening in St. Louis. Hundreds of thousands of people are beginning to speak up. Their children are dying. There's 50, at least, we know on a Facebook page, there's at least 20,000 people. And is that enough? We've gotten signatures delivered to the governor. That's still not enough. Children are dying every week right next to Coldwater Creek. That's not enough.
Well, let me just tell you, if you don't get organized, I saw some of the things that was done here, and they're all together. You got issues in Coldwater Creek, in Bridgeton, in Weldon Springs. If you don't get together, you're going to have less people. If you don't organize, and I saw some signs here. Well, you couldn't read the signs. You don't take it a political thing that the signs, politicians or whatever who's running the campaign, have signs you can read. There's so many signs you can read, and then you get it on TV, but you couldn't read the sign. Well, the sign should have said, we got pollution, we'd expect something or something. We really never did that. And you've got to decide what you expect to have. And the only thing you have today that you're paying for that's not living up to your expectations is the government. And why should you? And this why I want everybody here, to ask 10 people today and start the government. And their first thing is, but why should, in some cases, half your money or a percentage of your money go to the government? And you have to say, If it was a supermarket, you wouldn't go there. With any place else, you wouldn't go there. And the only recourse you have is to get to the election and vote these people out or get organized to vote these.
I agree with you, though. I do agree with that. Like the fact that these senators.
No, the only way you're going to do that is to get organized just like a regular campaign and say, look, this is the problem. If you can't understand the problem, maybe you're going to have to not do it. But the biggest problem we have, and people don't understand it, that 24% of the people work for the government. So when it comes to election, why would they vote not to have more taxes? Why would they avoid that? Because they're overpaid, 30% federal employees, overpaid, overpensioned, and overcompensated. They got more sick days, vacation days, and everything. Some of these things, like the Hillary Clinton thing, obviously she broke the law, that you can't have what she had. I tell people up here there's a road in St. Charles that I built some houses called Mugi Road. It's built to go 45 miles an hour. Or if you take your foot off the pedal, you'll go 45. Well, the city puts up a sign 35. Okay, so you go there and your speed, and you tell the judge, well, it was made for 45. Well, that's not the point. The law is 35. Well, you get fined. Everybody else would get fined. The law means something to some people, and a lot of people it means nothing to. Nothing. They think they can do what they want to do because who they are. Well, you know what we get? Most people come over here to get away from communism recently, okay, or came over here to get rid of things. That's how they did things. Well, we're going to tell you, and you don't have any say, and we're going to use these people to enforce that. Well, that's why these people left England. That's why these people left here. And my son always says, well, we shouldn't have these people immigrating here. Well, you know what? In World War II, we had no jets. The Germans was getting them. We weren't the first person to put that monkey down the thing. If you go to Huntsville, it was the Germans. And that a person has to understand that this country was built on immigrants that had enough nerve and enough intelligence to get out of where they were at. Well, we're here, and our forefathers saw that, and we sit here and don't take advantage of what they put here for us to use and take advantage of.
It's worse than that, Rod. It's not we're not taking advantage of it. We're allowing it to be destroyed by the industrial military complex, period. That is really what this whole issue is about. They are ignoring us because they made a huge mess. This nuclear issue is the worst mess on top of the fuse wrap. I mean, the technologists, the people that thought they were going to turn the century around and enlighten humanity have found out exactly how toxic and dangerous their byproducts are. And instead of being responsible citizens of the world, they are choosing to experiment on us like lab rats. They are ignoring us. When you talk about we need to get this on, we need to organize and get on the media, we're not getting on the media. The fascist state, we can thank Bill Clinton for that. He gave our airwaves to 2 or 3 corporations and guarantee they are not giving it back. That's why this alternative radio is very important, because we don't have voices anymore that really speak. For goodness sakes, Bernie Sanders was bringing out 20, 30,000 people at a time, 15,000, 20,000, while Hillary Clinton's getting 200 or 300 people showing up at her. And yet the media is allowing her to steal and rig the campaigns. 2 million votes in California were not even counted. 2 million votes before they declared her a winner. So we have got to get smarter than just relying on, I think, in my view, we need to get smarter than just relying on the old way of dealing with things.
Well, let me tell you, being in a campaign, and everybody says negatives. Why don't you say the positive thing about a person?
Right.
Well, that won't get people out. People get out and they're working in negative. And that's a human nature, I think, all over the place. Well, everything should be good. When it's not, and this is not. And if you sit here and do nothing about it, nothing will happen.
Well, not only that, if you do nothing about it, you're part of the problem.
And people, if it's a pro thing, you expect somebody not to do this. You expect if you pay somebody, here's what they'll do. You expect that somebody wouldn't do that to you. You go to work every day and you expect that somebody's looking out after you. And what you're going to find out is they might not, or they're getting paid to not do that, because and that's hard to extend. I saw these employees, and there were 7 agencies there. Well, they got a job. They got a job to do just what they say. And if I probably made what they said and I had a family, and I'd say, well, maybe I'm going to do that, okay? But at some point and at some effort, that the negative needs to be explored. And does it got to get so bad that it, you got to say something, or do you organize and go and see? And not only is it's the national. Well, there's an article here I just read at Google. They went to the White House 150 times to see Obama. There's stuff here that Google, that we all use every day, is not saying the things under Hillary Clinton. Does anybody understand? In 1993, she had 480-page indictment for bank fraud. Forget about that bank. One of them that I'm familiar with, it was $480 million. Where'd that money go? I question. Well, if the government don't do anything, and I talk to the FBI, well, that's all hearsay. Well, it's not hearsay; it's fact. And what's happening today? If I'm really, I'm 71 years old, and really not in very good health. But, and I lived a good life here. But what I'm saying is I'm worried about my grandkids. I'm worried about somebody happened to what happened to my wife. My son said, "What are you doing this for?" I said, "Well, I built houses up there. I feel some obligation. I
Wow.
mother died of cancer. I feel some obligation, and somebody needs to. And see, if you don't have a benefit coming to what you do, but people do have a benefit because they don't know if they're going there, where they go there, if their job's going to be there, and if they're just going to say, okay, that's okay, we're going to do this and we're going to do that, and there's no hope. Well, if you live in a world of no hope, that's a terrible world to live in. But you have to have a purpose and an effort to move forward. And what we're doing now is not moving forward on any of these.
Well, we're not moving forward for reasons of political corruption. I mean, look, November 25th, 2015, it was reported. And what was the name of this? From Jason Kander, U.S. Senate. He put out a statement. It came from an article that he found in the news from St. Louis Public Radio. Exposed Senator Roy Blunt's son and also his campaign manager is a lobbyist for Exelon. And he has been working to delay. The company hired Andy Blunt to work to slow down the government's process to try and avoid to pay for the cleanup while delaying to help Missouri families. This is your own senator who gets elected time after time after time. His son is working against the Westlake landfill people. So it's just such an outrage. I mean, people think that it's not that harmful. But, what people fail to remember is that nuclear pollution is a tremendous burden on people. And it causes ill health for all of your life. And it can pop up in 5 years, 10 years, depending on your particular body. It has it has a latency period of 4 to 80 years. I'm just completely blown away. It's not just one side or the other. This is when the nuclear industry really makes us have a one-party country. The Democrats and the Republicans almost all of them are all on the same side. They're all scared of the military. They're all scared of being killed. They're all scared of not obeying orders. And so they click their heels and say Sig Heil while they're poisoning the rest of us. I'm over being nice about it. I'm completely over being nice about it. It has to end. It has to end.
Political's a rough game. Dishonesty is by the media and not reporting or what they report or what they tell. With Google taking Hillary Clinton and not saying, hey, she's got this, she's got that. And it really doesn't come out. And you got some people that are saying that right on the thing, they let it be out, that all these Hillary, all the people that this judicial watch had that they're depositioning. Well, the FBI looked at that and found nothing. Well, the FBI hasn't looked, and one of the problems is, and I tell people this, and I've been to Russia for a period of time, 4 weeks, and I've been to Bulgaria for 4 weeks. I saw.
My daughter lived in Russia for a year. She was a foreign exchange student. So I can share with you some of that sentiment about the Russians. I'm not afraid of the Russians. Frankly, the Russians, we kind of have to separate, in my view, the political structure from the nuclear structure. Because if we hadn't noticed, the nuclear structure is its own subset of government. We do have a secret government. There is a very strong deep state worldwide that is going to protect nuclear at all costs. I mean, there is something going on that this is why it's resistant. This is why No Nukes Northwest on Sunday got its boat rammed by the sheriff's department up here in Portland. They were, it wasn't No Nukes Northwest. It was a little boat that was called the Peace Bird, or what was it called? It's called the Peace Vessel, the Golden Rule Peace Vessel. It was the first vessel that stopped, and they went out and they stopped. It was built in 1958. They made a protest and stopped the bombing of the Marshall Islands. So there's Fleet Week here in Portland, and all the Navy fleet and the military and the nuclear fleet was coming into the Portland Bay, and they were sort of parading around their fleet. So this little boat went out to protest and said, "Stop glorifying war." The sheriff's department literally rammed the boat as an act of aggression to intimidate these people. This is where they're at right now. They are completely out of control without regard to human life. I mean, this is why we can talk about all the deaths in St. Louis we want. They don't care who lives and dies. They want complete, total authority. And you are right, Rod. The only thing that's going to happen is if we take it back and use the government structure. I mean, I think you're right in terms of us having to organize and vote and make the people that are passing these laws afraid that they're going to lose their positions of power.
That's the only way.
I mean, I don't know what it's going to take, honestly. It's like, but you know what I think what it's going to take is just sheer determination, because there's more of us than them. You know what I mean? Like, we just have to decide we are not going to allow them to destroy our country and our world.
Well, there's a couple things that this nuclear is bad. Why? There's a video out. It's called Europe's Last Stand, America's First Warning. Why, when you have a law that says if anybody, you're a communist or you have some part of you want to overthrow the government, which Muslims do, and that's what they want to do, you want to have Sarah law, would you let these people in here without vengeance? Putin, the two terrorists up in Boston, okay, they were from Chestia. The Muslims went into a orphanage over there and killed 360-some orphans for no cause.
Well, Rod, I honestly don't believe for a second that those kids did that. I mean, I'm just going to do full disclosure here. I don't believe that those kids did the Boston bombing. I do not believe it at all. I don't believe that story for a second. I think it was an exercise to see how easily Americans would take martial law. That's what I think it was all about. I don't believe for a second those kids did the bombing. The story has tons of holes in it. Like, as it was going on, I couldn't even believe Americans believed it. I'll be frank. So, I'm not interested. I mean, for me, you can, but I'm just doing full disclosure. I don't believe it at all.
Okay, well, what about these 50 people that in what was it, Orlando, that got shot?
Yeah, you know what? I'd really love to see the videotape of the whole thing. I mean, this is where we've gotten in our country. We've had so many, like, fake emergent. Every time they want us to not look at something, some big issue that's coming up, we have some major catastrophic event. And I'll be honest, you know how you can gauge whether it's being controlled by the government and the media is look at the news coverage. It's 24 hours nonstop. 9/11 set the mold nonstop. They get their story out nonstop until it saturates everybody's brains, and most of Americans are frothing at the mouth. Like right now, this is all about us wanting to hate the Muslims and being afraid of Muslims in our own country, and it's going to be those people coming in here, and now we're going to have all these attacks on our own shore, and we have to be afraid of the Muslims. personally, I'm not afraid of Muslims. I'm afraid of a lot of Christians as much as I am afraid of a lot of Muslims, to be really honest. Like that whole media, that whole thing, I don't buy it. I think it's part of their whole program to get us to not pay attention so they can do whatever they want. Because right now, people in our country, excuse me, are busting at the gut. We're seeing it everywhere.
Oh,
We are seeing it everywhere in our country, where they are just using us uh, as really just experimental lab rats. I mean, it's an outrage. What was going on this weekend that they didn't want us to look at? What was the thing that happened this weekend that they didn't want us to look at? You know what happened? Was the Bilderberg group met this weekend. That's what was going on. So I just, do I believe it? I don't know. I would like to see some of the film clippage and some of the film videos. I mean, and I don't know. I mean, maybe they did kill 50 people, but was it caused by some guy who is just the whole story, all of it? I mean, can you tell I'm cynical, Rod?
well, you know, what, what, what? And when I say what, there's only one way out of this. That's to get organized, talk about it,
That's
to
right.
say what we think's wrong.
That's right.
Or you know what? If I know one personally, if you don't like him, then he needs to go. Catskill, he needs to go.
Yeah, McClaskill. They
The
both.
people that
This is
cannot
the
say
issue. See, it's
what's
not
here.
just them though. This is we can rinse and repeat. We until we get to the core bottom line. Like my own senator Jeff Merkley, a great guy, brand new senator. His first act, one of his first acts as being a senator, was to try to submit to the floor of the Senate legislation that would modify the Price-Anderson Act, which would say if somebody in the nuclear industry knowingly causes harm to a community, they can be held personally liable. Do you know that that it was Mitch McConnell, and my own progressive senator, Ron Wyden, who prevented that piece of legislation from even being discussed and voted on? This is what I mean. Like, how deep is the corruption inside our government? Our progressive senator Ron Wyden and the House, the leader of the Senate, Mitch McConnell, prevented something from being submitted that would actually help the American people because it's related to nuclear. This nuclear is our big nemesis. I'll be honest. It is the nuclear and the geoengineering is the big secret government. They're working on it, and we're on a need to know basis, Rod, and we don't need to know. That's the bottom line. They don't care. They know children are going to die. They know people are going to die. They know we're going to have birth defects. They know all of these things. For goodness sakes, our own NRC on the website, the NRC says it's perfectly acceptable. They know that for every 2 rems of radiation in the air for a population of 1 million, they accept 32,000 extra cancers a year and 200,000 birth defects every year. They know that's going to happen. So, I mean,
Let me just tell you what the shame we have is. We
Yeah.
have a shame. 2012, the DNR writes a letter that there's no problem here, and how he did it was real simple. He didn't take those 2 zip codes. He took one, and it's a percentage, not 100%. And then of people that never even lived there, and he takes zip codes where there's really no problem, puts them together, and then he gets it down to the number they want to have. Now, the guy that wrote that report is still working for the state of Missouri.
Wow.
Somebody said, what are you doing? And then in 2014, they're asking for emergency funds because of the pollution. Now, this is 2014. This is almost 70 years. and they're asking for emergency funds because of the problem. Well, then, today, excuse me, my microphone just dropped. Today, the Post-Dispatch in their faces, and the news media says, well, there's no problem, the government says. Well, then in the Post-Dispatch, they have a picture of a fella standing in front of a train car that's covered up, and they're redoing an enumeration in the park up there in Hazelwood. And he says, there's no problem here. Well, if there's no problem, why are you up here enumerating, and why are you sending this to New Mexico? And why would you be standing in front of here? And why would the paper be so stupid to report something like that? Well, because the government said so. Well, we question some of this. Some of the people we get on the Facebook and things is that it looks like you can't even get that way. We're lucky we have a computer so we can find out about stuff. I never found these letters without looking.
Right.
I didn't find out some of this stuff without looking. But if you don't think you got a problem, you might be the person like I was, burying my wife, 33 years old, a cancer. I didn't know. But you know what? When I do know, I should do something about it.
Right.
Instead of, I'm going to work today, it won't affect me. Well, guess it might. It might.
It will.
It will affect you. If you give your money, and in some cases, 50% or more, you should understand that you expect more for that. You expect, if you went to the store and gave half your earnings to somebody, and you got let's call it a corrupt, shitty product, you do something about it. You'd be outraged. Okay.
That's right.
But well, today we're doing this from the government. We pay them, and our explanation is, well, it's the government. Well, we shouldn't expect that of the government. That's our entity to do something about.
Well, not only that, Rod, we're not only paying the government half of our income, they're giving our money away to people who are harming us. That's the shock about it. They're giving our money away. I mean, what did the Pentagon say? How many trillions of dollars are missing? There's no accountability at the Pentagon. The Pentagon basically told the Government Accountability Agency they can't balance their budget. They can't balance their books. There's so much money missing. They have no idea. And then on top of that, when we finally closed down the San Onofre nuclear power plant, the Navy tells the Southern California Edison they're not taking the land back from it because it's too radioactive, and that doesn't even hit the news. I mean, it makes me angry. And it makes me angry that the people in St. Louis are just being offered up as like cannon fodder to World War II. It's not right. You were right. You didn't know. You could not have guessed when your wife died of cancer. But now that you know, people in your community ought to be outraged for you. You lost your wife at 32 over something that you had no idea why.
Let me tell you something that I saw. And everybody knows about Ferguson. Ferguson is right across the line from where this is at. Okay, these houses where my wife was born and lived for 20-some years are brick houses that are probably 70 years old. Okay, after Ferguson, the government owned a bunch of them because nobody could sell them. Well, why would you resell that house and not tear it down?
Right.
You already own it. Don't tell me you got to come up with the money, And some of them were going for $15,000 or $20,000.
Wait a minute, Rod. Back up here. This is information to us outside of Missouri we don't know. Are you telling me that in Ferguson, the government was selling houses,
Well,
right?
they repossessed them. I'm sure there's all kind of repossessions in there, and if they were in a given neighborhood, you ought to tear them down. Why would you spend all this money remuneration and some of this pollution? Talking to this Fulbright scholar physicist,
Oh,
they don't know. They're talking about 1,500 years getting to half strength. This isn't something you're going to get in 60 or 70 years. It's
no.
something that you need to go and get rid of. Well, the biggest thing in any kind of problem is avoidance. In other words, if you're in the insurance business, you avoid the problem. If somebody's going to steal with them, you don't put something for them to steal in front of somebody that would steal. You don't put that out there. It's called avoidance. So anything in your own mind, and you naturally do it. Some people don't. I was in the quartermaster corps, and they sent me down to see who was stealing stuff at Fort Leonard Wood. I was in the reserve. Guy said, "What did you see?" I couldn't tell who stole it, but why would you put the stuff for them to steal in front of these people if you know they were stealing? I mean, it's so simple that
Yeah.
it's unbelievable. But one thing we got here, and this is a different community than most places, that we have in the city of St. Louis, next to Washington, D.C., the next most federal employees. It's crazy. Really not. It all came here in World War II. That's why the bomb was made here. And a bunch of these agencies came here because they were scared on the East Coast of the Germans and on the West Coast of the Japanese. So we're in the center. You know, and the geographical center was to the east of us in the last few years. Now it's to the southwest here a little bit. But this is the heart and the soul of America. And everybody says, when you look here, or you look at certain precincts or wards or states, they vote how the American people voted. Well, every time except this last one, we didn't vote for Obama, but it was close. That we understand, we do this, but there are certain people that when the government gives you something, I'm going to vote it's okay. If there's certain things I legislate that I want, well, that's okay. And when you get this thing and that thing, and you put it, fragment it by a number of people that's been either overcompensated, either in political terms or financially, and that includes government employees, the gay community that they're getting this legislation through, other welfare programs, and you take all of those people together and you see those averages, well, it gets up in the 40 percentile. So if people don't think if voting is important, if they don't like what they got, in other words, you got to stop somebody that's working for the government because they're overcompensated. You have to stop the people that have something in their agenda other than what your agenda is.
Well, that all requires that we get people actively engaged, and they spend a lot of money getting us not actively engaged. You know, Rod, we've got like 20 seconds left. I really appreciate your conversation. I hope you'll come back and join us again.
Okay, I would appreciate it.
That
I
would
got
be
some
really
more things
awesome.
I'd like to say.
Great. Well, I'll reschedule you and have you back on. To all of my listeners, thank you for joining us on the Age of Fission radio show. Put your courage feet on. Take action. Organize. Let's take this back from the people trying to destroy us. Put your courage feet on.